101.5 WPDH, the home of rock and roll. It is Smitty here, and we got a big show coming up at the Paramount Hudson Valley in Peekskill on April 10th. We're talking about Kansas, and right now I am joined on the phone by David Ragsdale, the violinist for Kansas. How are you, sir?
I am fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing just dandy. And first, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us here at WPDH. It's definitely awesome that you're doing this for us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So now the violin, it's a major part of Kansas and, their progressive rock sound. Tell me a little bit about what influenced you, because you've been playing violin since you were, I believe, 3 years old. Tell me a little bit about what influenced you to pick up the violin when you were that young.
Well, it's kind of a funny story, really. I did not want to play the violin when I was a child. I hated the violin. My mother wanted me to play the violin, and I just absolutely hated it. I had no interest in it, until I was, 12 or so. It was just, I was forced, and I resisted. And I wanted to play guitar, and I had a guitar, and I actually got fairly decent at it, and thinking I'm going to be a guitar player in a rock band. And then I started becoming familiar with when I was in my early teens. It's like there's some really good guitar players out there that I would have to compete with. And when I was about 16, I was driving around in my hometown, and I heard "Can I Tell You" on the radio. I'd never heard of Kansas. And I'm listening to this, rockin' song with this rockin' band with this guy back there playing this rockin' violin. And it occurred to me at that point, hey, I could go back, actually, try to play the violin, and then I could play violin and guitar and enhance my chances. And that's pretty much what I did. Kansas played a really big role in me ever even going back to the violin.
Wow, that's amazing that, they had such an influence on you then, and now you're in the band. And
isn't that something?
It's crazy how things work out. So you entered the band in the early 90s. Tell me what it was like going into, Kansas being one of the, most well-known classic rock bands. Tell me a little bit about what the experience was going into a situation like that.
Well, I'd been chasing them around for 4 or 5 years. I had sent them a tape. They had released the album Power without a violin player, and I sent them a tape. I put together a little package that demonstrated what Power would have sounded like if they'd had a violin player.
Nice.
Drummer Phil Ehart, who is also the manager of the band, called me up. He was very impressed with it, but he didn't hire me. But he gave me his number, and we kind of stayed in touch. And if I went into the studio and did anything of any merit at all, I'd send it to him. And
wow.
I'd call him twice a year or so, just, hey man,
It just amazes me, just the story. I had no idea that they would have that big influence on you, and then the way you got into the band is just unbelievable.
Yeah, chased him around, and he called me in '91. They were going into the studio to demo 2 new Kerry Livgren songs, and he asked if I would care to join them, and it's like, well, of course I would.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
And right after that came this one-off summer tour, greatest hit summer tour that is actually the same tour that we're on still today. It just never really ended.
That's awesome. I love the fact you guys are out every year. Last year alone, you guys did just under 100 concerts. You're already close to that number going into this year. You just finished recording a new studio album, your first studio album since 2000.
Yes, we did, and we are extremely pleased with it. It was done. The whole thing was done in such a short period of time. You just couldn't think that. But boy, it's really outstanding. We're very, very pleased with it.
The name of the album is The Prelude Implicit, and it comes out in September. Is that any of those songs included in the current set list that you're going to be playing on April 10th at the Paramount?
No. No, they're not. We don't want to spoil.
You want to ruin the surprise.
Yeah, we thought about doing it, and then we just took that off the table, and we'll just let everything happen the way it should happen.
Now, is there going to be a separate tour in support of that album come next year?
I don't know. That's very possible, but Kansas fans are still going to want to hear "Dust in the Wind" and "Point of No Return" and "Carry On." All the.
Oh yeah.
So, we're we're not going to throw all that aside.
Well, no, absolutely not. You know, fans have certain expectations, I guess, when they go into a show like that. So, I mean, you guys are playing the Paramount down in Peekskill April 10th. So pretty much fans can just expect to, you know, come out and just for you to rock their socks off pretty much.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Count on it.
Well, David, I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me here. Kansas, Paramount, Hudson Valley, and Peekskill, April 10th. Get down there. It's going to be a great show. David, thank you so much.
You're welcome.